What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to Salty Runback, here to be your weekly intake of North American Developmental League of Legends. We are through 2 weeks of the NACL, with games, of course, starting up again on Wednesday. Also, a big week in the world of CLOL, as we have our conference finals coming up and our last week before the unveiling of the National Championship bracket. Other news kind of just purveying through the space. LTA started last weekend as well. We'll talk about a little bit of everything here on this headline episode. My name is Grapes, joined alongside Hawk. Hawk, how are you doing today?
Grapes, I'm doing fantastic. Yeah, the first week where I feel like we had every league, developmental or North American league playing at once. That means there's a lot to talk about. There's been a lot of discourse in the space about the LTA opening weekend. A lot of it's been negative. There's been some cool stuff that happened as well. I want to give a quick shout out to Scary Jerry, who had a great game 2 against, or was it game 1? Oh, well, no, it's just best of ones now. Oh my God. He had a great game against FlyQuest. Didn't end up winning, but was getting some props from like a lot of the casual fans and stuff. And as Grapes mentioned, a big week in CLOL. Half of the upper bracket now decided for the National Championship, as well as NACL. I feel like the regular season to me actually feels more interesting than it has been over the last couple splits. I could be off base on that, but I feel like there's a really thick soup that's going to be fun to watch.
Yeah, it seems like every game can be competitive, as we saw, and we'll talk about a little bit.
And it feels like they matter more.
We got actually a fair amount of 3-game series this week compared to last week, which was good. We only had one 3-game series last week. I think we had 3 out of the 6, or maybe it was just 2 out of the 6. But it felt like a more competitive week overall in the NACL. And they talk about some of the viewership issues that maybe the LTA is facing. I'm part of the problem, but also not part of the problem, because I didn't watch any LTA, but it was because I was watching CLOL the whole weekend.
So based.
Which is the opposite problem of what they're trying to address at this point. It's not people who are going away from watching other I'm going deeper in the weeds, right? That's my problem.
I had a multi of 6 CLOL streams going at once on my computer, and then on my TV I had LTA. So I had 7 league streams going on, and my girlfriend came over just for a couple hours before I went to work on Saturday, and she was like, "What the fuck?"
You show this?
I was like,
you show it set up to any normal, functioning adult, and it's like, oh wow, maybe this isn't normal.
Yeah, I was like, babe, this is my ideal Saturdays. Sorry. Yeah. She's been playing League though. I'm kind of indoctrinating her.
That's
a little
awesome.
bit. So. Yeah, but no, it was a great Saturday to watch League of Legends. I'm completely here with you. It was fucking legendary.
Yeah, well, let's get into some of those recaps. But before we do so, make sure to like the video, subscribe if you are new to the channel, as well as checking out all of our social media platforms, including our Patreon, which we are continuously uploading weekly content over on there. More CLOL stuff coming out.
Mostly weekly. Well, CLOL Central's been weekly, yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing our best.
It's hard to coordinate. We're coordinating with players. We should have another shooting the salt out, I think, in the next week or two. We'll find a time to sit down and record that, because it is that
one was fun though. I like shooting the salt.
A lot of fun stuff on the Patreon, so make sure to check it out.
Yeah, and again, join our Discord channel. Every single episode, I feel like I continue to say the traffic on there is going up, but it's because it's legitimately true. I'm really happy with the community we've been able to create. Link in the description. But yeah, you can find all that fun stuff there. But Grapes, there's a lot to talk about, starting with, kind of what we normally stick to on this podcast, the NACL.
We got to do our Patreon first.
Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I almost forgot the Patreon headline.
Another benefit of joining the Patreon is you have the option to suggest a headline to us, and we're going to try to keep it non-league related, so we're going to have a lot of league to talk about as well.
Or if it is league related, make it something real out of pocket that you want, an unfiltered Hawk and Grapes opinion.
Yeah, you don't ask is Dragonsteel going to win the split? You should ask which League of Legends champion would you want to go out for drinks with, or something.
Yeah, or which NACL player could grow the fanciest mustache or something. Oh, here's a good one. Khaled, you should ask this. Which NACL player would look the best bald? That's the kind of headline that we want from the patrons. You know what I mean?
Too many ideas. I got got the other week. Anyway, this one
I've avoided getting got. You motherfucker, you predicted against them. That was foolish.
This one comes from Shonatonin, who asked about video games, but not necessarily League of Legends. Wants to have our pick of like the most underrated video game that we have played either growing up or just like in our lives. So just to get a chance to talk about some of our other interests outside of LoL esports.
Yeah. Man, it's so fun. I was talking to Grapes before this. I'm like, this is a hard Patreon headline because I've not played too much recently. Because I've not had a lot of free time, and in my free time, I play League of Legends, or I watch League of Legends more accurately.
Yeah.
But I've always been a big Pokemon gamer. That's the other game that I've been like reasonably competitive in. I've hit top 200 on a global ladder on Pokemon Showdown before for Gen 7 overused. This is like a few years ago now, but so yeah, I've really enjoyed Pokemon for a long time. I don't really play the main series games. I just like playing competitive and like consuming content around it. Also, like, I don't know, like Smash is great. The best single player game I've played in the last decade is either Super Mario Odyssey or Hollow Knight. Both of those are like fucking goated.
Both games that I started but never finished. I got like halfway through. I got halfway through Odyssey.
Get this guy off my podcast.
Odyssey was really fun, and then I just ran out of time, and then my sister took the Switch to go to college, so I just never got the chance to finish it.
Damn, that's tragic.
Okay, growing up, have to give a shout out to my baseball games on the Wii, Mario Super Sluggers and MLB Power Pros 2008. Played those games so much, even like recently.
I've played Super Sluggers actually.
It's fire, absolutely fire. That's my favorite. It's one of my favorite sports games.
Dude,
yeah, like
you
a
got
story
the Donkey
mode
Kong
too.
Boxing glove,
With the boxing glove. Oh, all so good. Recently though, I've actually been replaying the Undertale / Deltarune games because the new chapters of Deltarune are coming out. I think in June it was just announced in the recent Nintendo Direct. And the last time I played these games, maybe like back in high school when Donkey made like a video on it and I thought it was funny, and so I like got into it a little bit. And I actually like now that I like put more time into it, I actually like went back and beat all the bosses that I was like I never did, like all like the kind of optional missions and stuff like that in the game. It's actually really, really well done, and the music's great. So that's what I've been doing, like kind of in some of my free time recently.
Yeah, for my birthday, I asked my mom to send me our old Wii and like all my Wii games. And this also includes Super Mario Strikers, not the Wii version, but like the original GameCube version, which is the superior version. And I want to give a quick shout out to Cubby and Rafa if they are watching this show. We when Rafa was still in LA, we had some pretty intense Strikers showdowns on Mark's GameCube, and I'm very excited for my Wii to get here. It's still like, I don't think my mom's been able to ship it yet. She's an accountant and it's tax season right now, so I think she's gonna ship it after that's over on April 15th.
That's fascinating.
I'm very excited for because then I can also get like Mario Kart Wii, which is definitely superior to the Switch version in my opinion. Yeah. You can
that's
actually
that's like the hardcore gamer. Yeah, well, did you have the wheel that you like spun around?
Dude,
okay. And then you shook it to get the tricks?
Yeah.
Okay. No, I actually no, you're right. That was hype. The Mario Strikers game, that was like the one Mario sports game I actually like never played.
Dude, Strikers is goated. It's like hard. Like it's legitimately intense as fuck. They make everything so like cool. Oh man. Anyone that's not played the GameCube version of Super Mario Strikers, like you need to.
I did a lot of the Mario and Sonic at the Olympics when I was growing up.
That's classic,
And then the tennis game on the, I think it was like the Wii U, Mario Tennis. We played that one too, and then Super Sluggers. Like those are my go-tos.
Here's a deep cut. Do you ever play Mario Sports Mix for the Wii? It was like volleyball, dodgeball, like
there's like a basketball version too. Yeah. I never had the game, but I think I like played it at a friend's house.
Dude, that was also like kind of lit. I'm not gonna, dude. Nintendo puts out some quality stuff.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Switch 2. It's gonna be calling to me.
Oh, it's gonna eat.
I already know it. But we'll see. We'll see in a couple months. But thank you, Sean, for the suggestion for the headline. As we will move on to any League of Legends, which is what the point of this podcast is about. Starting off with again the most hyped up matchup that we had entering the entirety of the regular season that happened last Thursday. DarkZero Dragonsteel against Luminosity Gaming, the two projected top teams in the league. And it was DarkZero. the defending champions who came out with a dominant 2-0 win. Luminosity had some moments here or there, but it largely was DarkZero controlled. And with this being their most likely their toughest opponent on paper for the entire season, Huck, here's the question. Over or under 1.5 total game losses for Dragonsteel for the remainder of the regular season specifically?
It's crazy, man. This series between them and Luminosity was like, it was such a pleasure to watch DarkZero, because they actually, I thought, were like a little unclean around the map at times. They made some like, I think, happy little plays. Some mid-game decision-making moments. I was like, I'm not sure if I agree with that. But like, man, they just fucking handscapped them, which is crazy to say, because Luminosity has some very good players, like we can meme of like, Tactical's a fraud or whatever, but like that guy is still Tactical, like
I think Tactical played okay. Honestly,
no, Tactical was fine.
Considered, yeah.
But like these guys kind of just got gapped later on in the game. Like it was absolutely wild. Spyrax had a heater, Zamudo had a heater, Yuji had a heater. The bottom lane did fine. I just thought it was like such a treat to watch, because I felt like I was truly watching like the next generation of talent just fucking play. Like it was real like raw League of Legends. It wasn't refined, but goddamn, it was sexy, And for that reason, I think it's an under. I if they're not dropping a game to Luminosity, who is DarkZero dropping a game to? Like I'm sure they will at some point, just because that's the nature of competition. And like I said, their games are like a little unclean. But I'm of the opinion that like they're gonna continue working on that cleanliness. But like the way they play the game together as a team in the critical moments is like no one's gonna top that. They're just nuts.
Yeah, I guess I could see a team like on a heater randomly like pulling off a win in a game against them. Like I feel like anyone in that kind of mix towards the middle, even
yeah,
Near
like
Airport,
it could happen.
Like Near Airport did pretty good against them in scrims, I believe, today, if I remember correctly.
I'm interested. I didn't watch that.
As a reference, last year Dragonsteel did go undefeated, but they did lose 3 individual games. So we're projecting a level that is potentially even more dominant than that. And I'm gonna take the under as well. I think there's a world where they lose 1. But 2 is like so hard to come by, because I'm assuming that we are favoring them to go 9-0 at this point for the remainder of the regular season. And then the question is, are there 2 of the remaining teams that aren't Luminosity or Pulsar that can take a game off of DarkZero Dragonsteel? And like they all could take a game, but I don't know if they all will.
I mean, let's put it this way, Grapes. Like last year, Maryville went 9-0 and they only dropped 3 games in the regular season. And I think most people would agree that the level of play in the NACL is lower this year, or at least like the level of like names. Like we're still kind of continuing to have that little bit of like talent leak, I think it's fair to say. So yeah, no, I'm taking the under 2. DarkZero, I mean, I like seriously, I'm just fucking, I feel like a kid on Christmas watching this team, man. Like I'm just watching like Zamudo, Yuji, Spyrax, all these guys are just like, they're just better. And like there's something about that, like it's why people like to watch the LPL and guys like the Shy or Chovy. Like it's I feel like I'm watching the same thing, but like on this NA tier 2 level, and it's so fucking awesome.
The closest comparison to another region or something was like when Griffin, that team came up, and it was like Chovy and Tarzan and Viper, and then it turned into Viper Lahens, which obviously like is a very different situation, and I think that those players like are probably like obviously like those are massive shoes that they would have to potentially fill.
No, but it's the same like energy though. It's the same energy.
Yeah, and honestly, the way that I'm looking at it as well is that this Luminosity core is 4 out of 5 of the Shopify Rebellion LCS team from last year, and that was a team that was in the LCS, and they finished 7th, but they were a team in the LCS, right? And so the way that they were able to take such control of that series, to me, speaks volumes to how a DarkZero Dragonsteel would perform if right now they were actually placed in the LTA, which could be another interesting discussion for a later point in the season. Last thing I will say is that it is interesting because a couple weeks ago we had the conversation of like, is the Ole Miss Winthrop group in CLOL closer to Maryville or closer to like the rest of the pack? I think you were saying that they were maybe closer to Maryville, but I think to
Yeah.
me, like that argument has been shifted after watching this team play even more.
I think it's funny too because to me the argument has shifted to become I think Maryville is that much further ahead of the rest of it because now, and you put this on your tier list the other day on Twitter, which I completely agreed with. I think I thought it might be Maryville and UST next to each other, right? Now I think it's Maryville.
So hard to say. Yeah, you can't.
I think it's Maryville and the fucking boys. Like I think they are the runaway favorite to be the best team in this entire NA Dev year.
So you both got the under.
Yeah, taking the under.
All right. Hey, circle back on it in a couple of weeks once the regular season starts to round out. As congratulations for that big win for Dragonsteel. I know it meant a lot for them. I know that was a big series for Luminosity as well, but I'm sure that they'll be able to bounce back. They got 2 regular season games coming up this week. Next headline, talking about another series that went 3 games that maybe we weren't necessarily expecting to, and that was between CCG Esports and Near Airport, where our boys from Near Airport, they actually dropped the first game of that series, Hawk, and it was a little bit shaky from them overall. It looked like CCG was going to win that series for a long time. The game 3, they were ahead for a while, and then a couple of throws by them combined with double of clutching up in a big team fight around Elder Dragon allowed for Near Airport to eventually take that one. Overall, your assessment of this series, is it CCG is a legitimate team after beating Supernova and taking NA to 3 games, or does Near Airport have some problems that they're going to need to sort out for themselves?
Such an interesting question. Like many conversations, it's a little bit of both. You know, I do think it's a lot of both, to be honest with you. Like, I mean, I literally said like a day after or the day that our player ranking episode came out, I'm like, we might have snubbed like this like 4-man core, the four Crimson, Dardoch, Array, and Breezy. I'm like, we might have underrated them just a little bit, you know? And they've looked really good. I think Aljun has had a really strong start into the NACL as well, like props and credit where credit's due. And I think CCG is like a pretty good team. I think they're actually one of the teams that showed me that they might be able to be competitive against the top teams as opposed to like, look at like the Winthrops and Supernovas and Blue Otters of the world that I'm kind of like, damn, they might suck. And it happens. Like at the end of the day, all the teams kind of suck a little bit. And that's why we're in the NACL,
league,
right?
By the way. Yeah.
Yeah. But CCG's looked pretty good. They've had good moments. And I think they're a good team, and I think we might have underrated them perhaps a little bit. But Near Airport has really real problems, and that needs to be emphasized. I mentioned, I mean, a lot of people have talked about like Spica's comms are not good. I think that's a really relevant thing. I have talked on broadcast about how I think Doublelift over contests midwaves and gets picked a lot, which can put his team in tricky situations, as well as TF Blade is like Huni 2.0 in the top lane for better for worse. He kind of needs to get on like his champions, which is hard in the Fearless Draft format, and he really likes to play hard for his own side lane. I think this team really relies on just like hands gapping the opposition. I mentioned in the Luminosity series, I think they really struggled to play like any sort of proactive game plan, but they played like what I call like the CB LOL / like old TSM, like guys just group up for every dragon and try to beat them 5 versus 5, which is going to work against a lot of teams. But I really would like to see like more game planning kind of going on from them that I don't feel like is coming through. And again, like all of these I feel are kind of like small to medium-sized issues that kind of culminate in maybe the reason why coming in I didn't expect Near Airport to be the best team in the league and why I still believe that.
Yeah, let's start off with the Near Airport stuff a little bit just because you were just going off of that. A very interesting aspect of this whole thing is because they are Near Airport and they're this content team, like you actually get to see them like break down and like try to sort out these issues like live on stream. I actually turned over to Doublelift stream for part of this series when I was watching it. And like I remember specifically after they lost game 1, which was a game that they controlled for a lot, and then CCG randomly like just aced them in a team fight and won the game from there. And then Doublelift like was upset. He was frustrated with the call that was made to like start that fight, and then he muted like in his break and then started like talking to chat about like some of the issues that he was having with the team. And to me that like I was a little bit weirded out by that, but then after the series, they obviously like they talked it out on stream like all together, and I think that's fine. Like you don't want to like tilt your teammates like by like complaining.
The fact that they talked about
right?
it after, I think, is fine. Yeah.
Exactly. Like that solves a lot of it for me. But that was a very interesting thing to take note of, and it was cool to see them like try to sort these issues out as players who have had to go through this like year after year on all different teams that they've been a part of, right? And so I feel like some of that like old style that you were talking about also goes into some of the decision making that they have, like the Spica 9-man sleep at 2020 Worlds. I feel like we're seeing some of that where they're very indecisive. It seems like Near Airport is very indecisive sometimes, and they need to have something happen to them. They play more reactive than proactive. That's what I've noticed, at least, especially in some of the CCG series.
Yeah.
And so I'm curious to see like if those are just old habits that are gonna take a long time to die out, or if they're gonna have to like try to build compositions specifically to fit that play style or what. But yeah, this team definitely does have some problems. I mean, they were very much at risk of going to 0-2 through the first 2 weeks, which was not what anybody expected, especially against a team like CCG.
Yeah. No, I agree. I don't think I have too much to add to that, honestly, other than like kind of echoing the sentiment I said before. And I really, again, like the reactive thing, I do think it's like old habits kind of dying hard. Like it literally, you can look at the Luminosity series, and I'm talking more about that one because that was the one I was casting. I didn't get to watch too much of the games on Thursday and Friday this week because I was working. But like yeah, near Airport in game 1, Luminosity made a big mistake. They won a huge team fight, and then they controlled the game from there and were able to end it. But then, like, they kind of waited for the same mistakes in game 2 and 3, but Luminosity would just, like, punch them in the mouth and win. Like, in game 2, they had a better scaling comp, so they outscaled and won. And then in game 3, they said, hey, we're going to pick Warwick, Cho'Gath, Taric. What you going to do about it? And they weren't able to pull it out, right? And so, yeah, I think Near Airport just they have stuff to work on, and I think it's really important. Like, and I haven't watched too many of their individual streams. I'm curious if like Near Airport is looking at their games as like isolated incidents or trying to fix systematic problems, because I think if they do not fix the systematic problems that they're having and instead just focus on like individual stuff, I don't think they're going to improve very quickly at all.
I mean, we said this is a team that at its peak could compete with the top of the table, but right now, you know, looks like DarkZero Dragonsteel is very much ahead of the rest, and we'll see if they can keep up. But shout out to CCG as well, making it a competitive series.
Yeah.
Them and Conviction are the two teams that I have my eyes on in terms of maybe surprising us a little bit more than we originally had expectations for. They both looked very good to start the year off.
Yeah, I agree. I think we talked about Hoarder on the podcast last week, if I'm not mistaken. Hoarder had a good one for Conviction. CCG continues to look good. I still think the soup is going to be very thick. Like, yes, Conviction and CCG have had better moments in the early weeks, but I'm expecting like the rest of the soup to kind of catch up, / maybe these teams will all mix in with each other at some point.
Yeah, we talked about our top teams. We talked about some of the teams in the middle. Let's talk about the teams that were expected to be towards the bottom as we get into our next headline, where Apex, Mission Impossible, and Pulsar actually impressed rather nicely, both against Winthrop University. Apex, Mission Impossible winning their series actually outright over the Eagles, and Pulsar taking a game off of them early on. I think we've seen some good things from each of these teams, and with, you know, maybe some not so great things from some of the teams that we had ranked higher than them, Hawk. Do we think that Apex, Mission Impossible, and Pulsar are closer to that middle of the pack than we originally had them going into the year?
Look, I need to come out and say something real quick, because I always said that AMI is like closer to the pack than I think they are to Pulsar level. You know, those are the words that I used early on. Like, I have always been a believer that like AMI is capable of taking games off of the pack, and we got to see it happen. I was really impressed by their win over Winthrop. I thought they showed a lot of poise in that series. I definitely would attribute their performance in week 1 at least partially to nerves. And obviously, you know, they still have, like, I think it's fair to say Conviction might still be the better team, right? And they deserve that 2-0. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say, but like, I think they just looked way more like chilled out in the Winthrop series, which enabled them to win. And obviously it was still close because Winthrop is like who we expected to be the stronger team in terms of an individual level, which we saw on display. But I think we really got to see the team play that came out from them. And so, yeah, I would say AMI has always been kind of like closer to the pack. I don't think my opinions have changed on Pulse. despite them taking a game. For one, it's against a Winthrop team that I think we can like reasonably say was on a bit of like a skid this past week, a la Supernova.
They did the
Ole Miss. Yeah. Less intense, I think. And I think we've also always known that this Winthrop team is just, they're really swingy. They've always been. But like, I don't know, Pulse took the first game. It looked pretty good. And then they didn't really look ultra competitive in the next two. Like they stayed in those games, but I didn't ever feel like Winthrop was in major danger of losing that series, to be honest with you. I still think this team is 10th. I still think it's completely possible that a team could drop a random series to them, but the fact that Winthrop didn't, I actually think says a lot. You know, they were able to like dust themselves off and pick up the next two games. So, you know, credit to Pulse for taking a win. But I actually think my opinions on both of these teams have not changed that much, despite their wins over Winthrop.
Now, we still had like AMI, like I think in a tier below. Would you feel comfortable in saying that they are now just in that middle tier after the top two, like with Near Airport, Blue Water, Supernova, etc.?
No, I don't. I don't think they're necessary. Yeah. I think like
that would be the next step for them.
I think they're closer to that tier than Pulse.
Okay, I think I can buy that as well.
But also, like, if I'm being 100% truthful, I think if it was up to me, I would have had Pulse rated lower in our player rankings. But we established our floor as being 75, and I was fine with that. And obviously, we want to gas up the players, right? And I think that's a very good thing to do. But, like, I do think I would still have AMI as, like, a solid-ish 9th, but with, like, room to grow. Whereas I'm like, oh, Pulse is probably 10th. You get me?
Yeah. For Pulse, they're having the moments that we were hoping that some of their individual players would have.
Yeah.
Even if they didn't necessarily come off with a series win. I think Bio had a great first game. I think Hub overall, like, played very solidly throughout the series. And so that is something that I'm excited to see from this Pulse Star team. But yeah, I don't think that they will necessarily be the favorites against any other opponents. But I like the individual moments that we're seeing, both in the last week that they even played against DarkZero, where Bio also had a couple of really like strong moments in that game when maybe DarkZero Dragonsteel were fumbling around and like for funning it a little bit more than they should have.
Yeah.
On the other side for Apex though, I think my stock of them has actually increased after this series, even though a team like Winthrop like was on a bit of a slide there. And to me, it was because they were able to play their traditional style, which was lock up a huge front. In game number 1, they played a huge front line. They played double marksman with 5 mini on Tristana, or like just like, you know, strong backline threat. And then they very slowly but surely won the game with like one big team fight at the end, like kind of culminating in it, right? And then in game 3, they just completely stomped from minute 1. Like, it was a 27-minute game. Final score on the kills was 22-2. I like went to get dinner, looked at my phone, and the game was already over. Low Jazz had a great game in that one. I think overall the team just like outperforming all of Winthrop, like top to bottom in all aspects. And that to me is like more telling that this team has more room to grow, right? Because it wasn't just the standard way that we've seen AMI win games. It was like just them completely diffing a team like Winthrop.
They did close their games cleanly as well, which is a huge issue they had in the OQs. So that's cool.
Absolutely. So I think maybe my stock of AMI has increased a little bit. Maybe my stock of Polestar has increased a bit as well. There's definitely a world where I could see them just completely getting O2'd. I think now they're not going to just be a free walkover win for any of these pack teams. Like they're going to.
Yeah, you gotta like you can't just disrespect them. That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely. You're gonna have to lock in at least a little bit. You're gonna have to like not. You can't just like play like Ultimate Bravery. Is what I'm saying for Polestar, which maybe some people.
I will say though, Polestar giving over Nefiri and Gwen was crazy work, bro.
Yeah, interesting situation there. Who do AMI play this week? I think they have a couple of games, if I'm not mistaken. It's just actually these two teams play against each other. AMI versus Pulse this week. Who you got? You got AMI?
I got AMI 2-0.
All right. There we go. Think I have the same. As that's it for our NACL discussion here today. Let's move on to actually diving into Tier 1 a little bit and just the general ecosystem as a whole, as we're going to get a bit meta here for this fourth headline, as it was announced by Sheep Esports today that FlyQuest is actually going to be signing a sixth man. Their top laner, Gakgos, will be coming in from the ERLs, from I think the LFL specifically, I believe, a Turkish player. He's 17 years old, and he'll be operating as a six-man alongside Whippo. Now, this certainly is an aspect of talent development, bringing in a young prospect to play alongside one of your veterans as the veteran starts to potentially phase his way out of playing and more into coaching for the long term of his career. However, FlyQuest did dissolve their NACL team going into this season with the message that they would be finding more ways to invest in talent development that could be more sustainable and more beneficial to them. Is this move by FlyQuest what you were expecting when you heard those words last winter?
Yeah, it's so interesting because no. But dare I say that this move and that statement are mutually exclusive. Like, look, there is like, if FlyQuest really wanted to be like NA Warriors, right? They could have gone for Zamudo or some other NA top laner and be like, guys, we're investing in NA talent, right? But if I had to guess,
we don't necessarily know if Zamudo was available, right? Like maybe DarkZero wanted to keep him, maybe he didn't want to move over. We don't know
which
that
is
for
also
sure.
possible. I mean, at the very least, I don't think they would have gotten Zamudo until Split 3 at the earliest. So yeah, that's like a relevant consideration, right? Also, I can't comment on whether or not this is a good move, like if Gakgos is good or what. I just don't know. I've never heard of this player before. But I would guess that this is like a Whippo. He wants him for some reason, or at least like that has to be at least 51% of the decision making in my mind. I could be completely off base, but I'd be so surprised if this was just like entirely scouted by like Papa Smithy or whoever, right? But this feels like Whippo being like, I want this guy to kind of be my replacement / protege / like teammate. You get me? I don't know. So that's why I'm just sort of like, it's interesting because I agree that there's like definitely some criticism to be thrown here. I'm really sick and tired of like the importing fucking random players from other regions that like have minimal upside compared to the talent in NA here. Like, you know, sometimes they're a quad, but sometimes they're a roamer. You know what I mean? Like it's just,
or sometimes, yeah, for sure.
But I almost feel like this is not that.
This is not that for sure. And I think the article kind of dives into that a little bit. I think you can have the like disagreements with how FlyQuest have currently been invested into North American talent development, which, to be frank, has not been very much, especially after the Polestar merger kind of
which they were at least going
to
try to do some sort of something.
Yes, they were. However, the article mentions this guy and talks about him a little more. Again, we don't follow the Division 2 of the LFL, which is where Gakgos has been playing. But what it seems like is that this guy is like the sniper of EU. He's 17 years old, plays a lot of crazy different champions, and is actually going to be entering the league, according to this article, as the youngest ever European import to North America ever. That's younger than Bjergsen and younger than Santorin when he first moved over. And it's a 3-year deal that they are signing him to. So they are clearly betting on this guy to be a part of the future for FlyQuest. Obviously, contracts in esports Omega LoL, like they could kick him after this split. Who knows? Like I'm sure there's some agreement, like part that of that agreement in there. But I think for the specific goal that they had in mind, find some cracked prodigy in the top lane that they think like has tier 1 potential and also the ability to play tier 1 like pretty immediately. This is not like necessarily a situation, especially with Zamudo not being available, if for whatever reason he wasn't, that like I don't blame FlyQuest for importing specifically for this role, and it seems like they do actually have a decent like game plan and long-term focus for how this can work out.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this is a commentary on NA Dev because also, Grapes, I think it's important to note Zamudo is probably the only player either of us would currently promote to the LCS in the top lane.
Yeah, I think like 2021. If it was 2022 and Sniper was available and was of age, like able to do that, like you do this move like from NA instantly, right?
Yeah.
If that was available. But right now in terms of you're either looking at like a Fake God or Fake God or Dokla, who in my opinion don't provide too much extra compared to what Bwipo could provide, and also have kind of been established quantities.
It feels like minimal upside.
Yeah.
Which I guess maybe then the argument is, are you waiting for a Zamudo if you sign one of those guys? Which I could maybe take that.
Yeah, but if you're looking for a 6-man for Bwipo, I don't think signing a veteran makes sense. The other options would be a Crimson, Denethor, or Hoarder, who are like, in my opinion, a little bit too raw to be at the tier 1 stage right now, just given what we've seen from them. And so going out and finding a young player who seems to be really performing well in this like LFL split, it's an interesting discussion to me. I would love to talk more about like how right now North American orgs aren't doing enough to support our current talent pipeline, but I don't think that's necessarily fully connected to this move specifically.
Yeah, I think I'm in agreement. I'm curious to see how it shakes out, but yeah, at the end of the day, FlyQuest, they're in win now mode, and the NACL, and this could be the criticism, right, is the NACL pipeline is less fluid than it once was with, academy teams and stuff like that. But even then, I think this move makes sense to me.
Do you want to get into what a FlyQuest could do more? I obviously like they had something in place and it kind of fell through, which is why it's tough to criticize them, at least right now.
Yeah, I don't. Let's get into that, because I don't like, what could FlyQuest do more? They were going to try to partner with Polestar, but then Polestar turned out to be a terrible organization, right? So it's what are they supposed to do for this split?
I still think that when you look at the LTA South, and 4 of like the South teams have academy teams currently in their tier 2 ecosystem, even though they have no opportunity to promote, that to me screams that there is some sort of inherent value in having a tier 2 organization or having an academy team, even if you don't have that ability to promote, right? Even if the top level prospects aren't going to, or the top players aren't going to immediately flock to your team because maybe they want to try to prove themselves. I think there's other instances where you can use that tier 2 team to pretty good effect. You can scrim against each other. You can bring in maybe more maybe different younger prospects. Like imagine if the Polestar roster right now, the slated 6 roster, just imagine a hypothetical without any of the other previous situations happening, that FlyQuest challengers sign that team to be their academy team. They take the offer from FlyQuest because they have they like on their own probably don't have a chance to promote or get a spot in tier 2 anyway. And then if FlyQuest really believe in some of these guys, like a hub or a bio, they can work with them and try to develop them in this tier 2 ecosystem and not have to worry about either promoting or demoting. I feel like there's a lot of value in that, and I'm curious to see if that is something that they try to explore in the future, because to me, like, oh man, like that, like seeing the Polestar roster right now and these like younger players like have their moments, to me, like if that was be able to be supplemented by an LCS supporting staff around them, and they could really like build these players into something more than what they'd be able to do on their own, that to me is like where you could absolutely see a world where tier 2 teams in this specific promotion relegation ecosystem still make a lot of sense.
I don't disagree with you. All I'm going to say is like, you and I both know that like the reasons FlyQuest gives for getting rid of their challengers team is just talk. Like a lot of things in esports is not like FlyQuest specific, but like it's just talk at the end of the day, right? And we know it's about money. So like I don't disagree with you, but I also think like clearly FlyQuest doesn't want to spend a bunch of money on a tier 2 team. And so, if their goal is to still in some way try, they were going with Pulse. What?
I just saw that Papa Smithy is on Hotline League right now as we speak. Should we maybe call in or something?
Live call in, something on back to Hotline League.
Maybe next time, but man.
Wait. That would be crazy.
If he's watching, maybe we'd love to have you on the show, Papa, and talk a little bit more about it, because I think there's some angle there that we think that there's opportunity there, and maybe it's just us being naive, and you can shut us down and provide your arguments in favor. So
honestly, a debate a debate style of thing between like a Papa Smithy or like a whoever about like an Oregoner about like the pros and cons of tier 2 would be pretty lit.
It would. It'd be. Oh
I
man.
don't think they'd ever agree to do it, to be honest, but it'd be pretty lit.
That'd be content though. That'd be content.
It would be content.
Yeah, I'm wishing the best for FlyQuest. Obviously Masu and Busio, Quad even, and Spot. Like these are all players that I love. Like I love all 5 of these players. Hopefully we learn to love Gakgos as well because they seem to find something. They seem to have something in him that they like, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. I'm curious to see, especially after CFO like had the 6-man roster during first stand. It seems like more teams are leaning towards being interested in that being like a potential strategy. So, yeah. That's all. That's all for now. I think on that, as we can transition over to CLOL, which is where we'll be spending the remainder of this episode. Let's start off with the biggest high-profile matches of the week, and then maybe after that we could dive into some other things that are happening this upcoming week as well with the conference championships. The biggest stuff that we saw in terms of matchups between high-level, top-tier teams was in the NACC, where Ole Miss took down Winthrop 3-1. This is now the second time that Ole Miss beat Winthrop in the NACC playoffs. And it creates a situation now where there's a consensus 5 top teams. It's like Maryville, UST, Ole Miss, Fisher, and Winthrop. But now with Winthrop being the 3rd seed from the NACC, they likely end up starting as a 2 seed or a Pool B team in the CLOL National Championships, even though they are considered to be right in that pack and have played competitive games against all of these top teams. Do you think that this is an unlucky situation for Winthrop or deserved after dropping 2 games to Ole Miss?
It's like it's a nuanced conversation for sure. I think the only way that it's considered unlucky is that they didn't get a chance to play Fisher again because they had one match early in the regular season against Fisher in which Fisher won 2-0. But all of Winthrop had like the flu at that time as well, right? And it's like, how much does that matter? A lot of conversations there. But like bottom line is like I think a lot of people really wanted to see them play again so that we could just get more data on the 2 teams. Because also to Fisher's credit, they have a fantastic resume against like the rest of CLOL. It's not just like a Winthrop specific thing that's kind of earned Fisher what is a probable top 4 spot. But at the same time, at the end of the day, like, you got to win the games in front of you. Winthrop lost twice to Ole Miss in a couple of weeks there. I think in general, this team has still just routinely struggled to kind of break out of this tier that they've been in for like 2 or 3 years now, where they're consistently amazing, but like not above the rest of like the contenders, and I think that's just kind of the world that we live in. So I think I don't think it's that unlucky. Like, yeah, it sucks that they didn't get to play Fisher again. I would love to have that data, but that's not the world that we live in. And at the end of the day, I think the difference between being the 4th, like the worst 1 seed or the best 2 seed is zilch. Like, it just doesn't matter that much. So, if you're gonna win CLOL, you got to beat everybody anyway. So it's fine.
The one thing is that it means that if you win your first round game, which will likely be against a 3 seed, I think for a team like Winthrop, like playing a 3 seed versus a 4 seed shouldn't be too much of a difference for them because of the way the bracket is set up. But it does mean that you have to play a 1 seed in the second round of the tournament, most likely, because you'd be up against one of those top 4 teams. You'll be tested a little bit early, and then you have a risk of being sent down to the lower bracket earlier than expected.
But then again, if you can't beat one of those 1 seeds, you didn't deserve to be there anyway, right? So it's
yeah, but then it results, if you lose early there, that means you have to play more best of series in the lower bracket compared to just kind of having potentially an easier series against like a St. Clair or a Western. Like there's different ways to think about it.
I get it, yeah.
And it's just like you want to add as little variance as possible, and minimizing the amount of games that you play by staying in the upper bracket definitely helps that, even if your goal is to eventually win and by beating everybody. You know what I mean?
I get it. It does matter. It does matter. But it's just like, I don't know. I think at the end of the day, it's like, it's such a small difference. And I don't think you can argue that Winthrop like massively deserves a 1 seed. Now, there's definitely a conversation to be had. Graves, you and I were talking about this before we went live of like, what happens if Fisher gets like turbo stomped by Ole Miss in like 3 games this weekend, right? Like, yeah. That's where this conversation becomes interesting. or maybe spicier is the better word. But I think regardless, like, look, Winthrop's had a great season, and no one would doubt that they're a top 5 team, I think, at this point. But like, I don't know, they're third in the NECC. That's not a it's not a top 4 seed. I think that's completely fair. Like, you know, yeah, like someone's got to be 5th, and it's Winthrop probably.
Yeah. Quickly going through like the rest of the CLOL games that happened, because there were a lot. Big shout out first to UTM for taking Western to 5 games in a very competitive series. I think that overall the drafts that UTM set up for themselves were very good. They never got the chance to play against Western, and actually I think they exploited some of the weaknesses and some of the champ pool deficiencies that this team specifically has. So shout out to UTM after having a pretty rough week last week. I think up their stock again this week.
Yeah, that's a huge one. I also think Western versus St. Clair, again, is probably going to be like that. And NECC finals are going to be must-watch League of Legends.
I think we can announce this now. We're going to be streaming St. Clair versus Western on our channel this Saturday at 3 p.m.
Hell
Eastern.
yeah.
So make sure to tune into that. Don't know exactly what the coverage is going to look like. Hopefully we find some other ways to implement coverage of all the other championships that are happening. But this upcoming weekend is going to be really, really fun. We get those big national finals. We also have the MEC LAN as well as the NEC's finals, as you were talking about.
Yeah, I think the MEC finals is also going to be really important. What are some other important? Like, I know ISU clapped UHSP. I think that's a big bounce back win for them this past weekend. They get another shot at Maryville, 3rd one of the season. I'm just hoping that they look better than they did the last time they played Maryville, because woof, it was not good last time.
And our shot being called about USF being better than SCAD ended up not coming true. SCAD won a pretty convincing 3-1, so congratulations to them. I do think that St. Thomas is still rather favored in that one.
Probably just another 3-0, yeah.
Last shout out is to, well, okay, 2 more shout outs. CLO's all over the place.
CLO's go to
Rochester Christian and Purdue, in my opinion, upset their respective partner conferences in the ECAC and the WAC, and so they will be in nationals, so congratulations to them. And then the ESC LAN was awesome. If you did not tune into some of those games, I know, Hawk, you were working basically that whole span of time, but watching Miami University up against Northeastern, a 5-game series. I have a whole TikTok where I just like ranted about how awesome it was. If you have time to like just go back and watch some of those clips or something like that, like I would recommend it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, unfortunately Northeastern still got bent over by Ball State in the finals, so didn't do too much to raise their tournament stock, but it's definitely an ongoing conversation if you are a fan of Northeastern or even Miami of Ohio, because there are some things happening in the MEC that like nobody's good, so somebody has to get in basically. And so I think I say this, like, if you're a fan of one of those schools, your season's not necessarily over. We'll see.
The Schrodinger, it was like, you know, it's like Schrodinger's cat a little bit, where you like after watching that series you're like, oh my god, that was awesome. Can we get 3 ESC teams, right?
Yeah.
Like we either get 3 ESC teams or 1 ESC team, and then Ball State 3-0'd, and then
it's like oof.
Know.
But then like Ottawa's losing to Briarcliff right now, right? Like, so,
or I think Ottawa tied it up as we're recording this. I don't know exactly what the results are going to be once.
See, Briarcliff is marginally ahead in the early game of Game 3 right now. I literally have it on my second monitor.
That would cause some crazy stuff. If you want
it
more
would cause
bubble
some crazy
discussion,
shit. I mean, like, there's
office hours this Friday as well.
Yeah, check it out. Check out the last one because I was on it.
I know, yeah, you did.
And I talked a lot about tournament resumes and stuff like that. Kind of, I think, you know, Grapes, I think we can both leak that we're on the committee for CLOL at this point. So we'll have some big decisions to make. And you can kind of walk through like what a lot of my thought process is in terms of like comparing and contrasting teams based on like objective results based, but like how they've performed data.
Yeah. Probably do a big bracket reveal and filling in as dude, it's crazy that CLOL is going to be like the next week's episode that we're going to have to talk about.
Yep.
For our midweek. So
I'm just gonna tell you, our midweek episode is just gonna be a big bracket discussion.
Oh man, things are going so fast. We're like in the heat of the NACL season. CLOL Nationals is starting up. Like, oh my goodness, it's like something just gets me amped up about watching a ton of League of Legends. And once we're like, we spent so long in this like kind of limbo zone where we didn't know when NACL was going to start. We didn't know what the OQ was going to look like. But now that we're like fully in it, it feels good to be back.
It really does. It's been such a fun split, man. I can't wait. I need CLOL champs to start. Like, that's the shit where it's like injected straight into my veins, especially with the new format. It's going to be crazy. But that's going to do it for our episode here today. We'll probably be back on Thursday. We're switching back to the Tuesday, Thursday upload because
it'll be fluid depending on when we're available to record, basically. But
yeah,
we're going to get 2 out a week.
Long story short, me working at a bar at night on the West Coast and Grapes working like more human hours on the East Coast. Apparently not very conducive to finding times where our schedules line up to record Salty Runback. So it's mostly like a when we're available kind of thing. But we're still going to be bringing you bi-weekly episodes. CLOL office hours every week. Check us out at Salty Runback NA. We'll have other stuff going up on our Patreon. I definitely agree. Shooting the Salt, I really want to record another one of those. And then we'll probably have a semi-pro. We're trying to get those weekly. It's been kind of more like once every 2 weeks. It's been a little tricky, but
yeah,
we're going to keep doing our best. At Salty Runback NA on every platform. Also join our Discord. Also like, subscribe. Also at Hawkcasts, at Speedy Grapes. And if you think that we glazed DarkZero and Maryville a lot this series, if you think they are not like that, you can take what we said with a grain of salt. I've been Hawk, that's been Grapes. Have a great day.